What's going on, everyone? We're going to talk about something that we've been talking about recently called Treasury bills, but more importantly, collateral chains. And we're going to talk about why they would reuse Treasuries in our current situation. Catch that ball, boy. Go get them. Yeah, boy. I don't know what this has to do with football, but hey, it looks cool. First down. All right, anyways, abstract. So this study is basically to study what drives the reuse of U.S. Treasury securities in the financial system. Using confidential supervisory data, we estimate the degree. And when I say we, this is a paper from the Federal Reserve Board. So we, as in the Federal Reserve Board, estimate the degree of collateral reuse at the dealer level through their collateral multiplier, the ratio between a dealer's secured funding and their outright holdings. We find that Treasury reuse increases as the supply of available securities decreases, especially when supply declines due to Federal Reserve asset purchases. We also find that non-U.S. dealers' reuse increases when profits from intermediating cash are high. U.S. dealers' reuse increases when demand to source on the run Treasuries is high, and both types of dealers' reuse can alleviate safe asset scarcity. Finally, we document a sharp drop in Treasury reuse at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, with a subsequent reversal after the Fed Reserve's intervention to support market functioning. Now, the intervention they're referring to is back in September of 2019 is when the Fed started to step in to the reverse repurchase operations as a central clearing counterparty. Now, keywords used in this presentation are reuse, repo, treasury collateral, and rehypothecation, all words you're probably familiar with. Introduction. In financial markets, the reuse of U.S. Treasury securities as collateral in secured financing transactions is a widespread practice that enhances market functioning. Now, Supernote 1 says that SFTs, not to be confused with the securities financing transaction that service out of the NSCC that's pending, this is going to be SFT as in secured financing transactions. So secured financing transactions include repo, securities lending contracts, and collateral swaps. Reuse is defined as the delivery of collateral sourced through an SFT that must be returned at a later date. Although Treasury reuse is beneficial for market functioning, it also has important financial stability implications. For example, dealers reuse Treasuries to intermediate secured lending from risk-averse lenders to less creditworthy borrowers. Dealers also reuse Treasuries to source and distribute specific securities that may be in high demand. GameStop, AMC, improving underlying market liquidity. From a more conceptual perspective, the reuse of Treasuries also allows for the efficient distribution of Treasuries' safe asset benefits and has the potential to reduce the costs associated with safe asset scarcity. So isn't that awesome? Just the fact that GameStop and AMC and many others are scarce as far as availability, but the demand is high, that actually is a great way to basically take advantage and exploit the Treasury reuse. Now, specifically, the reuse of collateral involves the creation of an SFT, secured funding transaction, increasing the debt of the intermediary involved, and mechanically increasing their leverage. In addition, when financial intermediaries reuse counterparty securities, it can create operational barriers that make it harder to access a particular security or create uncertainty around who is entitled to the security in case of default. These problems may be amplified if the activity involves counterparties under jurisdictions with different regulatory treatments of reuse. Furthermore, high levels of collateral reuse can contribute to pro-cyclicality. When market conditions deteriorate, market participants become more reluctant to extend new secured loans or roll over existing transactions. As a result, there will be less collateral available for reuse, and reuse will drop, intensifying the contraction in secured financing activity. The financial stability implications mentioned above highlight the importance of measuring collateral reuse and better understanding the motivations behind it. Now, basically, this analysis provides robust evidence that U.S. firms and, to a less degree, non-U.S. firms increase Treasury reuse in response to an increase in safe asset demand. Similar to the incentive to intermediate securities, as the demand for safe assets increases, dealer increase reuse, distributing the safety of Treasuries to others. It's a bailout. From this perspective, the collateral multiplier does in fact capture the multiplication of safe assets, multiplication of safe assets whenever they're in high demand. Sorry if you hear the lawnmower. I don't feel like redoing this, so if you hear that in the background, I do apologize. Secured lending, please. Using these insights, we study the patterns of Treasury reuse during the market disruption triggered by the COVID-19 outbreak. We find that prior to the Federal Reserve's interventions in September of 2019, Treasury reuse reached its lowest point on record. The lack of secured lending is consistent with the notion that dealers were reluctant to increase the size of their balance sheet, in part because of the regulatory restrictions. We show that once the Fed announced an increase in the asset purchases, Treasury reuse returned to levels seen earlier in the year, which was basically at a near lowest point. These developments provide further evidence of the effectiveness of Fed purchases to increase the amount of Treasury reuse. Is it all coming together? Repo demand is extremely high, right? Fed purchases of assets so that they can use them in the Treasury to rehypothecate them to lend out to all of the people that are short everything else in the market. It's a giant bailout system. Whoa now. In essence, their findings show that changing the Fed's holdings of treasuries is an important tool to adjust the level of reuse, and thus its associated financial stability risk and market functioning benefits. Of particular concern for policymakers, Gary Gensler, are the collateral chains created by reuse, in which the same security is used multiple times, ergo rehypothecation. These chains increase the interconnectedness of the financial system. Like I said, it is one gigantic connected ecosystem, and it's all cycling through this repo market. The failure of one counterparty now to deliver reused collateral may affect the soundness of others further along on the chain. So now it makes sense why we'd be using the Fed, one of the only that can't technically fail to some degree. Because long collateral chains result in multiple transactions with the same type of security, each entity in the chain will have more correlated exposures, which can amplify the effect of a sudden price change of the security used to collateralize the chain. Sound familiar? So that's almost like what we see on a daily basis. I love shit like this. Great read. I'll link this in the description below if you'd like to read more. And let me know if you like this one. I can't expand on this. There's a lot more in this paper to talk about. If you found this interesting, let me know, and I'll make another one and go down the sheet. But this is basically a summary of it for you. The fact, just using GME as an example, the fact that the scarcity is there promotes the incentive to reuse treasuries. I'm starting to ring a few bells in my head. So let's keep digging.